Hello everyone, Rurikhan here coming at you with another Dark Souls 2 video, and this is the video that I said that I was going to make kind of like an impressions type deal for all you PC guys out there that still haven't gotten access to the game and are just dying to some media that doesn't necessarily spoil you of anything of interest in Dark Souls, because obviously the thing about Dark Souls is that anything you see can be considered a spoiler, because a big part of the experience is to be surprised when you enter into a room and you see a really big boss, or to be surprised when you get to a new area, and the experience is just not the same if you see those areas like ahead of time. At least that's the way I personally feel, and that's kind of how I feel in regards to spoilers for Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 and this whole series in general. So that's why I wanted to make this video, not just for the PC crowd, mind you, but also for all of you guys out there in the console world that still haven't had a chance to get your hands on this awesome title. So anyways, this particular video is going to work like this. It's going to be a two-part, and I don't mean two different videos, but it's going to be two distinct parts, which is me talking to you guys directly like this, because there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about that I can't necessarily show you footage of because you will be spoiled. And in the second part of the video, I'm going to actually be showing some gameplay. So those of you that do not want to see a single thing about gameplay, well, then I'm not going to be able to show you guys stuff like dual wielding, spell casting, and all that good stuff in the game. So we're just going to get started straight up. For starters, one of the things that I wanted to tell you in regards to Dark Souls 2 is that there's a lot of this question about, is Dark Souls 2 like I mean, there was in the past because of the whole issue with, I believe his name was Tomohiro Shibuya. We barely ever heard of him ever again. But there was the whole issue with the more accessible, the more simplified, the dumbed down, all of this stuff. And I just want to make sure to put you guys at rest. None of that is actually taking place in Dark Souls 2. The game remains true to the franchise. It is still, I would not say hard, I would say challenging. The difficulty is pretty much on par with Dark Souls, in my opinion. The mechanics side of things, however, has a lot more in common with Demon Souls, for those of you who are familiar with Demon Souls. For those of you who aren't familiar with Demon Souls, because you either played it on the PC or 360, then a lot of these mechanics are going to feel a little bit off to you guys. And that's perfectly normal. As a matter of fact, expect to be somewhat disoriented the very first time that you start playing Dark Souls 2. As a matter of fact, if you guys check out the comment section on any of my blind playthrough videos, you will see people pretty much shouting insults at me because I had my mind conditioned towards Dark Souls 1, and Dark Souls 2 is a very different game in a lot of aspects. Despite the fact that the game seems somewhat similar, and there's a lot of nuanced things that I will show you when we get to the gameplay portion of the video that I will want to talk to you guys about. The other thing, Dark Souls 2 is a lot bigger than Dark Souls 1. You will be surprised, at least I personally was, with the amount of time that it is probably going to take you to get through the entire game, which is a good thing. And I mean, it is big, but as per usual, it's not like with other titles that you sometimes see where it's like it's big, but it's the same thing and over and over and over again. It's big, but there's no filler. There's that content, that usual stuff that you get from Dark Souls, where it's like, if something's in a location, there's a meaning behind something being there. There's a story behind something being there, even though I personally haven't figured it all out. Having said this, the storytelling, the lore of Dark Souls pretty much remains the same. They don't spoon feed you the narrative. It remains like you have to look at item descriptions. You have to listen to character dialogues. As a matter of fact, character dialogues are actually a more important part even in Dark Souls 2 than in Dark Souls 1, because advancing character dialogues might net you additional rewards. Maybe purchasing stuff from certain stores might net you additional items. Kind of like since you're supporting the store, eventually the store kind of like evolves, so to speak. I don't want to go too in depth into the mechanics to prevent spoiling stuff for you guys, but basically some vendors, and I say stores, but whatever, vendors in Dark Souls 2, you actually have to buy items from them to gain access to future items that weren't there before. That's one of the mechanics that is in place. Also, like I said, the difficulty level is on par with Dark Souls. However, they give you a lot of options to make stuff harder. Like, for instance, there is actually a covenant that makes the game harder. I haven't tried that out yet, so I don't know exactly what happens when you do join that covenant, because I actually struggled quite a bit in my blind playthrough, as some of you guys will hopefully see whenever you get your hands on the title and then decide to hopefully come back and check out the playthrough. Yeah, there is a covenant that is going to increase the difficulty flat out. Not only that, but there's also a mechanic in game, which is there's an item called a bonfire aesthetic. And when you burn that at a bonfire, it's basically going to strengthen the enemies in that particular area. According to what I've heard from EpicNameBro and other YouTubers that have been playing the game and have been fiddling with that stuff, because I haven't fiddled too much with bonfire aesthetics yet, it seems that the monsters spawn at a New Game Plus level, and you can burn those more than once, so you can stack up mobs to become really, really more powerful. I believe that they will also then start dropping different items. I don't know exactly how these mechanics work, again, because I haven't played with them yet. I'm still kind of just like, exploring, figuring other things out. Like, for instance, at the moment, me personally, I'm playing around with the notion of dual wielding. Yes, the dual wielding actually works, and it is actually a thing. We will be talking about that a little bit later on. But yeah, these bonfire aesthetics are also useful for another reason, and that is the fact that there are limited respawns in Dark Souls 2. So what does this mean? Suppose you go through an area and you kill all the monsters, then you go back to a bonfire, monsters respawn, you go back and you kill them all again. Seems pretty natural, right? Suppose you want to farm something, whatever, for whatever reason, you keep just like farming that area. After you kill all the monsters 15 times, more or less, it's debatable. Some people say it's 10 times, other people say it's 11. I've only had this happen to me, I think, twice. On like 4 or 5 mobs or something, because they were in a place that I was going through a lot of times. So every time that I would go through there, I would kill them. At some point, I didn't even knew that this mechanic was in place, but at some point I go down there and I'm like, wait a second, there were mobs in here and they're no longer here. They were just gone. They never showed up for the rest of the playthrough. And you guys might be wondering, whoa, what about me farming my armors and all this other stuff? Well, there's limited respawn, so you better make good use of items that will boost your luck, which exist. There are items that will boost your luck, and I don't mean like items that you equip, kind of like a magic find type thing. No, these are consumables that will boost your luck for a certain amount of time. There is no longer a humanity mechanic, like a humanity counter. That stuff just does not exist in the game anymore. But as I was saying about the bonfire aesthetics, that's one of the things that they're good for, which is if you farm out an area to the point where the mobs are no longer spawning, if you use a bonfire aesthetic, they come back for another 15 spawns or so, except they're going to be stronger. So you have to take that into consideration. Do you really want to farm the items that bad? Good, go ahead and farm them stronger. And then you can use the bonfire aesthetic again, make them even stronger, and you can go farm another 15 times or something along those lines. Now, I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, oh my God, that mechanic sucks. I hate it. As a matter of fact, there's people even petitioning at the moment to get rid of that particular mechanic along with another mechanic, which I will address in a couple of seconds. To be completely honest, I like it. I like the fact that that mechanic is there. It's for no particular reason, because for someone like me, like for instance, I will go through mobs, and after I go through them once, usually I just try to figure out a way to run through them. I mean, you guys know, usually Souls players will do this kind of stuff. Like, you will get to a boss, and when you get to a boss, you will want to run through all the mobs to make sure that you get more boss attempts in. So to me, it doesn't affect me all that much. However, obviously, if I do want to farm a specific item, I can see that that can become frustrating. But I'm not completely against it, because if you can imagine, like, a newer player comes into Dark Souls, and they're having a really tough time going and getting to the boss, and they have to go through the entire area. They're not skilled enough to run through the mobs or whatever, so they kill the mobs 15 times or whatever, and the mobs just don't spawn anymore, and then you can just smash your face against the boss until you kill it. Again, this is going to be something that is going to be very polarizing within the community. Me personally, I'm not against it. I don't have any particular issues with it. And I'm kind of against farming in a way. I don't like the concept of farming. So as long as there are mechanics in place that that make me feel like I don't need to farm for things, I'm kind of comfortable with that. But I don't know, because this is a thing that maybe when I'm on my 10th playthrough or whatever, I'm like, man, I really wanted this item and now I'm really, really frustrated. But right now I haven't really seen a big issue with it. The other mechanic that I was talking about that some players are petitioning to remove is the soul memory mechanic. So how does this work, soul memory? Well, instead of the game just teaming you guys up by level, I'm not 100% sure on how the teaming up works, but it's not just by level anymore. There's another statistic on your character which is called the soul memory. And soul memory is basically all the souls that you've collected up until that specific point. So let's say you killed, I don't know, 1,000 monsters and you've collected 100,000 souls. That is your soul memory. And what this means is that there's also a specific range of soul memories when you are doing online matchmaking. And why do I think that this is an amazing thing? Now, a lot of people are completely against this, but me personally, I think it's really awesome because you're no longer going to have the case of those players that would get their characters to level 10 and then just go to the end of the game or whatever, max out all their items and get everything just beefed up, and then be waiting for you at the Berg with a plus 10 lightning sword of whatever, just to one-shot you, you know? That stuff is probably not going to happen anymore because even though they're level 10, they probably had to accumulate a really big amount of souls in order to completely upgrade that weapon, in order to kill the bosses that they had to kill in order to get to the Titanite slabs and all that stuff. They're going to be well ahead of you in soul memory, so they're probably not going to get teamed up against you. They're going to get teamed up against other players that have collected as many souls as them. Now, at that point, obviously, it's going to be a case of, does the leveling matter more? Does the gear matter more? That's going to be, it's going to be unfortunate for some people who think that they can just, get away with that kind of stuff of leveling up characters to level 10 and then just fully upgrading the gear and then invading level 10 players. I personally have never been in one of those situations up until this point, or any situation that I thought was completely unfair. There are some situations that you guys might find are a little bit weird, but I actually at the start I thought those situations were weird, but I came to kind of enjoy them because we all have to admit that there's a certain level of trolling within Dark Souls PvP and all that stuff. There just is, regardless of whether you agree with it or not. There's a certain level of trolling and having fun. So one of the things that they've done is they've added these PvP-specific covenants, kind of like Dark Souls, obviously, but this time they really went a little bit above and beyond with it. Like, for instance, there's a covenant that I'm not going to tell you too much about the details of the covenant, but there's a covenant in two specific areas of the game. I want to say two that I've seen. I'm not sure if it's in more areas or not, where when they do their PvP thing, instead of them actually invading you, you get summoned into their world, and they use these items that they can get in order to build defenses, kind of like a tower defense type of thing. And then they try to kill you as you're going through a gauntlet, because basically you're summoned into their world and you're stuck there unless obviously you pull the cord on your console or whatever. Although I'm not sure how that affects your multiplayer. I've heard that there's some stuff that happens to your multiplayer rankings and whatnot, but anyways, you're summoned into their world, and they have all these booby traps set up for you, and they're going to try to kill you. So the enemies in their world will most likely attack you and not them. As a matter of fact, I got summoned into a room where there was just a giant beast with an ad and the player, and I had to fight all those three things at the same time. And I was like, well, that's kind of a little bit harsh, wouldn't you say? But as you can see, there's that level of trolling to it. And it actually becomes a little bit fun because I get the feeling that maybe the people who are in those covenants, that when they summon someone, I think that the soul memory is probably considerably higher than theirs. Because so far, even though one of those fights I felt was really skewed, which was the one where I just had this really huge mob coming at me with an ad and the player. But there was another one where I was summoned to a world and I was able to basically completely own the player that was there. So, I don't know. I do believe that there's somewhat of a balance there. Then there's another troll another troll kind of, I consider these troll covenants where when you go through a certain area, there's an objective, there's something that you're going to have to do. And there's a covenant around preventing other players from doing that objective. And it's funny. It's funny. Let me just put it that way and leave it at that. So there's a lot of fun to be had with that kind of stuff if you're into that stuff. Now, you can still play the game online. You're going to have to unplug your console from the internet because the game automatically logs you in as typical Dark Souls. So that is something that you guys will have to take into consideration. However, I would advise you to play online because it's a lot of fun. You still have the messages on the floor. You still have all that stuff. Let me see what else I got here. You also got Jolly Cooperation. Jolly Cooperation still works the same way as previous Souls games. Of course, now you have the dedicated servers. However, dedicated servers, in regards to PvP, for instance, you guys might be thinking, so dedicated servers, there's no more lag stabs, no more of this. That's not been my experience. As a matter of fact, the matches that I've won in PvP, I pretty much spammed R1, and I think I killed the other guys after a bit of lag. Yeah, there's still a lot of lag. However, there is options in game right now that allow you to restrict the people that you connect to be from the same region as you. So that kind of evened things out a little bit. But when I had that on open, oh my God, I've had matches where there were people hitting me with daggers at a range that not even a halberd would hit me. So yeah, there's that to keep in mind as well. But as I was saying, Jolly Cooperation. How easy is it for you to connect with your friends? I know that this is going to be in a lot of people's minds right now. And my answer is I've only tried doing this with a friend of mine once up until this point, and it worked flawlessly. And I wasn't even using the ring because there's a specific ring now that will help you connect to your friends. This is a ring that you basically equip. When you equip it, it's going to ask you to select a god. And you and your friends select the same god, and basically it's like you're placed into the same lobby. So then you just both meet up on a same location as we usually do for Dark Souls, and then you can summon your friend. It should be fairly easy because I did this without using that ring with a friend of mine, and I think the most we've ever spent trying to summon each other was 3 minutes. I don't think it took us ever more than 3 minutes to summon each other. Now, the problem that we had is that several times we would be summoned by someone else because right now there's a lot of people hitting the Dark Souls 2 servers. So there's a lot of people summoning all over the place. So that's kind of to be expected. But if you guys choose a specific location that's maybe not a high traffic zone, which is what me and my friend ended up doing, instead of, you can even summon people at bonfires, right next to the bonfire, you will see summon signs. So there's that. But the thing that I was saying is that me and my friend, we ended up okay, let's actually go into the level a little bit and then hide here behind table X, whatever, something like that. And that actually made it a lot easier. Usually no more than 3 minutes, we would be summoning each other, no problem. So there was also a lot of concern in regards with the timed summons. Yes, the summons are timed, and the time does go faster if the person who is summoned is doing the killing more than the host. That I don't think there's a way for you to specifically see how much time is left. But to be honest, it's not really a problem. And I know that a lot of you guys are like, oh my God, it's terrible and this and that and the other. It's not really a problem because let's say you're going through a level with a friend of yours, right? So two of you are going through the level. You get to a point, someone ends, you return to your world. All your friend has to do is go back to the point where he summoned you, and your sign is going to be there. It's that simple. You resummon each other again because it's pretty simple. It doesn't desync that easy as Dark Souls, and then takes half an hour to be able to sync up with each other again. So since that problem is not there, it's fairly simple. Just resummon your friend, go back to where you were, and proceed onwards. The paths are usually friendly enough that allow you to kind of do this type of stuff, unless you die because your friend stopped helping you. But hey, that can't really be helped. What else? In regards of secrets, there's still a lot of secrets in Dark Souls 2. There's a lot of secret areas, a lot of hidden walls, a lot of shortcuts, a lot of traps. For those of you wondering about Anor Londo Archers, there are several situations that I would consider equivalent to Anor Londo Archers. There's probably people also wondering about Tomb of the Giants. There's also one specific situation that, even though it's not dark, I would still consider that particular situation to be kind of like Tomb of Giants, mixed with the Anorlando archers. Yeah, it's really weird, and it's not dark. That's the fun part. But I'm not going to tell you guys any more about that. What else? I'm going through a list here, and I know I'm still going to miss things, but at least I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a taste here. The other thing is there's a lot more bonfires than in Dark Souls 1. There are a lot more bonfires. The thing is, a lot of them are also hidden, so you have to figure out how to access those bonfires. Even though they're hidden, a lot of times you will see glimpses of like, oh, there's a bonfire over there, I need to figure out how to get there. That kind of stuff will happen. And the fact that there's so many bonfires does reduce the difficulty a little bit because there's a lot more checkpoints. And I know that I'm saying it reduces difficulty a little bit, and I'm going to have a ton of people telling me, but you sucked so hard in your blind playthrough. Yeah, I already made a video about that, so not really going to address that. In my opinion, it does make it slightly easier. But if you think the game is that easy, you can actually just use bonfire aesthetics or just join the Covenant of Champions and go right on ahead into hard mode and have fun with that. What else? You're not required to rest at bonfires in order to be able to access them or to make them your checkpoint. All you have to do is light them. So if you guys remember in Dark Souls 1, you would go all the way to the Undead Burg. You'd have a bonfire there. You would have to actually sit at the bonfire in order for it to become your spawn point, and you would have to respawn all of your enemies. In Dark Souls 2, the second you light a bonfire, it becomes your spawn point. So you don't have to sit down, respawn all the enemies in the area. No, you can just kill a bunch of stuff, then go there, light the bonfire, you're good to go. However, in order to recover Estus Flask uses and spell uses and all that, you still have to sit your ass down. There's a lot more bosses in Dark Souls 1 because, like I said, the game is a lot bigger than Dark Souls 1. However, I have to also say that some of those bosses, a lot of the times, are actually easy. So why do I say that the difficulty remains on par with Dark Souls? Because for those bosses, then there's also the bosses that are really, really hard. There's one specific boss that I'm pretty sure when everybody gets there, you guys are going to look at that boss and you're going to be like, so this was a boss fight? It just felt like a tanky mob. And yeah, there are a couple of bosses that are like that are fairly simple, that won't really give you a lot of issues. But again, like I said, the fact of the matter is there's a lot more of them, and I can't speak for New Game Plus. So maybe on New Game Plus, those guys will be brutally harder. I don't know. Maybe if you go to the Covenant of Champions, they'll be a lot harder. I don't know. But the difficulty curve is kind of a little bit all over the place depending on the route that you take. And here's the thing. It is a lot more open than Dark Souls 1. Because in Dark Souls 1, you could usually go to several places. But the places that you would go to, the game would be very indicative, telling you, you're really not supposed to be here. You can be here, but I'm going to kill you until you realize that you're not supposed to be here. In Dark Souls 2, I don't feel that particular thing takes place. It is a lot more open. It does allow you, look, you want to go left instead of right? Go for it. Just go for it. That's it. It is a lot more open. There are more paths that you can go down to. There is more stuff that you can explore. For those of you wondering, is there a Blighttown / Valley of Defilement equivalent? Depends on the way you look at it. It really does depend. There's definitely stuff that will remind you of that, but it's it's different. It's different, and you guys will understand when you get there, but I guess the too long didn't read answer for that would be yes, there's a Blighttown. There's a Valley of Defilement. It's a Souls game. Deal with it. In regards to references to Dark Souls 1, do people need to play Dark Souls 1 in order to play Dark Souls 2? Not really. And here's the thing. There are throwbacks to Dark Souls 1. There's a lot of stuff that players will see. Players who have played Dark Souls 1, they will see that stuff and they will recognize stuff in-game from Dark Souls 1. But if you never played Dark Souls 1, you're fine too. You're not really going to have any problems at all. At least me personally, that's the way I feel. The game could be called Dragon Souls, and it wouldn't really make much of a difference, in my opinion. But the thing is, it does take place in the Dark Souls universe, so it does kind of make sense that it's called Dark Souls 2. I know that probably the people who are really into the lore are going to come at me like, oh, but there's this, that, and the other. But for your average player, if you haven't played Dark Souls 1, you don't have to play Dark Souls 1 in order to understand Dark Souls 2. However, I would advise you to do it because Dark Souls 1 is an awesome game. Like I think I've already mentioned, storytelling remains true, so you still have to look at item descriptions, that kind of stuff. Careful with your assumptions from Dark Souls 1, those of you who come from Dark Souls 1, because there's a lot of different mechanics in Dark Souls 2, and stuff works in very different ways. Like, for instance, when you start in Dark Souls 1, the very first time someone hands you in Dark Souls 2, the very first time someone hands you an Estus flask, that particular flask is going to have one use. And upgrading your Estus flasks is going to increase the number of uses that you get out of your Estus flasks. Then there's a separate mechanic that also increases the healing your Estus flasks make. But these are two different things. So just kind of pay attention to those, because I'm getting my ass pounded in the comment sections of my blind playthrough, because I didn't pay that much attention to that stuff because I was just like too embedded into the game itself. What else? Let me just see here. Oh yeah, in regards to difficulty, there's something that I haven't mentioned, which is there's the Covenant of Champions, there's the Bonfire Aesthetic, there's a couple of boss fights that have something that I like to call organic difficulty. And this is really cool because this is going to be something that is going to allow people to have a bigger challenge on certain fights, and not necessarily increasing the difficulty via the Clan of Champions or via the Bonfire Aesthetic. They can do different challenge runs than those things. Now, I'm going to give you an example that actually does not happen in the game, but the reason why I'm giving you this example is because if I were to give an example of what's in game, I would completely spoil a boss mechanic for you. But suppose there's this boss, right? You go into this room, and for whatever reason, in that particular room, there's two statues that are giving the boss an unreasonable amount of defense. So you're basically not dealing that much damage to the boss. Like, you can still kill the boss, but it's going to take you a long, long time because there's two statues there just buffing the boss with either hit points or defense, whatever. There's two statues there that are making your life really miserable. Now, maybe if you explored a lot more on that particular level before you got to the boss, you might have found a secret lever or some kind of hidden pathway that would allow you to somehow either diminish the effect that those statues were having or destroy those statues outright to prevent the boss from having that additional defense. So that is something that mechanics like this are going to come into play for Dark Souls 2. So that's something to keep in mind. Maybe if you're smashing your face against the boss and it seems like the boss is unreasonably hard, then maybe you're doing something wrong, or maybe you need to explore the level a little bit more. There might be a mechanic like that in place for certain bosses. Not all of them, but there's definitely certain bosses that are like that. The bosses will still be killable under those circumstances. With all the fights that I've done, I've never once encountered a situation like Seath the Scaleless. If you guys remember that particular fight, the very first time that you encounter Seath the Scaleless, he is immortal, he cannot die, and you have to die in order to proceed with the story. I don't think I can't remember a single situation like that in Dark Souls 2. There's also no boss that I can remember that I would say, oh, this is kind of like a bed of chaos type of thing. I really think they didn't like the way the bed of chaos turned out, so there's nothing like that I can personally remember. But there are those mechanics that I told you about, and I really like the fact that organic difficulty is there. That is something really cool. And that is something that I kind of equate to those of you who did World of Warcraft raiding. You guys might remember Ulduar, which had specific hard modes, which you'd be able to access with different ways. But it's not like tuning a slider on the game or pressing a switch or something like that. No, it's like organic difficulty. It's there. You can make stuff easier or harder for you as you desire. So again, this is something to take into consideration, and I really, really like those particular mechanics, I have to be honest. Now, in terms of graphics and sounds, the sounds, I have to say, it seems like the sounds might have been a little bit over-compressed, because some of these sounds in the game, to me, sound a little bit low fidelity. Now, I don't want to turn this into a console war, so please don't get it started, but I'm just saying that Blu-ray discs have a lot more space than DVDs. And in order for the game to run on the Xbox 360, it had to go to DVDs. So I'm assuming that is one of the reasons why they reduced the fidelity of the audio, because like I said, the game is big. The game is really, really big. Okay? So that's something in terms of the sounds. However, the soundtrack is freaking amazing. I love the soundtrack. Some of these boss fights have amazing music. It was definitely really, really cool. I had to actually work with the soundtrack in one of my episodes because I messed something up with the gameplay audio, but the soundtrack is really, really good. The other thing is the graphics. A lot of people have been complaining about the graphics being dumbed down. How do I weigh in on this? Well, the graphics were definitely dumbed down from some of the stuff that we've seen online. For the consoles, I'm not exactly sure how the PC version is going to be. I'm going to assume that the PC version is going to look friggin' amazing, but the console versions do look a little bit dumbed down in terms of graphic. Now, for the most part, I didn't really notice it that much, but there is a specific zone in the game that I don't want to spoil it for you, but there is a specific zone that those of you who have seen promo material, when you get to that zone, you're going to be like, wow, this looks very, very different from what I've seen before. Now, does that take away from the game experience? Not that much. It's a little bit disappointing when you get to that particular area and you're like, it doesn't look as pretty as I saw it, but it's not really such a big deal. And the reasoning behind it is because the game was not running at optimal frame rates in the consoles, and that's pretty much the reason why the graphics were a little bit dumbed down. But again, doesn't really take away from the experience all that much. Also, something new, there's facial hair. For those of you who were wondering, I think this was pretty much confirmed like 1,000 times over. But anyways, there's that. Now, I'm going to be moving on to some gameplay. So for those of you that do not want to see a single ounce of gameplay, not a single thing, you can tune out now of the video. I'm going to give you a little bit of time as I talk about the zone that I'm going to put you guys in. Excuse me. So the zone that I'm actually going to be playing for you guys a little bit of is the tutorial area. It's not even the starter area. It's just the tutorial area. So there's no story elements. There's no nothing. It's just enemies from the tutorial. And I'm going to go over a couple of game mechanics with you so that you guys can have a look at it. So there really are no spoilers there. But those of you that don't want to see a single thing, feel free to tune out now. And thank you very much for watching. Now, on to the gameplay. This is my character that I'm working on right now for the dual wielding. And something that you guys might notice straight from the get-go is Rurikhan. Where's your user interface? It's not. It's not there. And the reason it's not there, it's because I know I'm making kind of a big deal out of it, but it's something that they did, which is it automatically hides your user interface when you're not in combat. And I love that. I love that feature because it really allows you, when you're exploring the world, it really allows you to just go around and look at stuff, and you don't have that user interface in the way. And like if you happen to have a capture card like me, it actually allows you to take some really cool screenshots. And for the PC crowd, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be using the option to automatically hide the user interface so that you guys can take some really awesome screenshots, because as you can see, even in the console, the game looks pretty impressive. And this is with dumbed down graphics. Now, if you guys look at my character, he is hollow right now. So how does hollowing work in Dark Souls 2? It is different from Dark Souls 1. You guys will notice that my health is not at maximum. That might be a little bit reminiscent if you guys remember of Demon Souls. Whenever you died, you would lose 50% of your health. Here you can lose up to 50% of your health. There is also something which is a cling ring, which I am using right now, the Ring of Binding. If I remove that, you guys will notice that I have a lot less hit points without that particular ring. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and kill myself for you guys here so that you guys can see what happens when you die. But basically, let me see if I can focus in on my face. Let me take away my helmet. There we go. You guys notice there, it's like my hair is all messed up. My character is getting all destroyed. You can barely even see his face properly anymore. And if I go ahead and I kill myself once, he's going to become even worse. Let me just go ahead and get through the you died screen. But yeah, he's going to look even worse than that, and your character actually progressively looks worse. Like, you couldn't see there, but my character actually has he actually has facial hair. He actually has a long hairstyle and facial hair, and he just looked like a piece of crap, because that's the way that you're going to start to look the more you hollow. There's actually a ring that allows you to retain your human status, your human looking status, despite being hollow. Now, you guys won't be able to notice much of a difference at one death, but trust me, your character progressively gets worse. Now, in order for you to summon other people, you're going to have to be full human. You can't be half hollow. You can't be hollow even once. You have to be full human. So I'm going to pop in an effigy here. This is what makes you human, and you guys will see that my character looks tremendously different. Tremendously different. This character, I try to make him look as a dwarf as much as possible. Unfortunately, you can't change the height of your character, so there's only so much I can do. Now, something to take into consideration, which is apparently a capital sin, the fact that I messed that up, is that you now have 4 ring slots instead of 2. And I didn't notice this until episode 20, and trust me, so many other people noticed that, and they made it a point of telling me over and over and over again. So yeah, there are 4 ring slots. There's also 3 equipment slots, so that if you want, you can equip like 3 different weapons. I'm just gonna equip some random weapons here. I don't want to show you guys too much of the weapons because, again, I don't want to spoil anything for you. Let's just go with random shields. Now, something that you guys might be noticing is the more stuff you equip, the more your weight increases. So right now I'm at 64% weight. You can see that in the inventory screen on the lower left corner there. With all this stuff equipped, I have a lot more weight on my character. So that's something to take into consideration. But it does allow you to switch between 3 different shields if you so desire, or 3 different weapons. This can also be used, obviously, for spell tools and the like. Now I'm just going to unequip this. Fat rolling in this game happens from 70% onward. So before 70%, you're always going to be fast rolling. The difference is going to be how far you roll. Now, I really don't want to... well, I'll take away my armor at the end of the demonstration, because I don't want to be cycling through the armor as... because there's a lot of armor sets there, and I don't want you guys to see all the stuff that's available, because, again, obviously, spoilers. Now, something to take into consideration besides your UI is you get, like I said, you get to teleport yourself through the bonfires at the very start. You also have access to your item box at the very start. And not only that, but your bonfire is also used to light up torches. Torches is something new in this game, which is so far the only way that I've found to light unlit areas. I haven't found any items that would like give you light or something like that. I'm pretty sure there's going to be spells that do it, but I haven't found that particular spell. Anyways, you get to the bonfire, press toggle, you can light the torch. How does the torch work? You don't have infinite torches. You actually have a limited amount of time that you can have this torch. You will pick up more torches as you go through the game, and torches basically is not an item. It adds time. So if you guys look at the inventory screen here, right beneath the ring slots, you will notice that there is a timer there and it's counting down. That is how much time I have left in my torch. You pick up a new torch, you get an additional 5 minutes of torch time. Why would you need torches? Well, certain areas will require you to use torches to interact with the environment. You can set stuff on fire. A lot of times you will also want to be able to light things up because it can be dark where you're going. This is just a random enemy, very basic enemy. You can just like smack him. This weapon is at +6 or +7, I want to say. Yeah, this is a bandit axe. It's at +6. So I'm really a little bit overpowered for these guys in particular. But yeah, you can also use the torch to block, although it's not going to be very efficient. As you can see, I'm still taking damage. And the second you switch to a shield, torch goes out. And that's it. You don't have a torch anymore. In order for you to get a torch, you have to go back to a fire source. Tell me I've lit that. Oh, I forgot to lit that. Idiot. Anyways, there are those things over there which people are calling sconces. I've never heard that word before, so I have no idea. I call them braziers or braziers or whatever. I don't know what to call them, but These things, you can set them ablaze and they will work as a kind of checkpoint for your torch. So whenever you set one of those on fire, you can come back here at any point in time and rekindle your torch. Which is important because you might be doing combat, you want to use your shield, and you can't use your torch. So it's nice if you have something close by to rekindle your torch if you happen to need that. Apart from that, what else can I tell you about torches? They also will have effects on certain enemies. I'm not going to say anything else besides that. And again, you can set stuff on fire throughout the game, and sometimes you will have to use them in order to light the path ahead. Now, another thing is in terms of blocking, I was very used in Dark Souls 1. Every single time I hit my block, my shield comes up, and I'm blocking. In Dark Souls 2, it doesn't work like that. There's a delay between you pressing the shield block button and you actually entering an active block stance. Look, I'm pressing the button now. Notice how long it took me to set the shield up for blocking. I know it doesn't seem like much, but trust me, when you're trying to block something that is hitting you, it's going to seem like an eternity. So let me just see. Do we have enemies in this area? I believe that there's a couple more. Oh yeah, now they want to show you backstabs. Backstabs have new animations. They look really cool. This is the backstab animation for an axe. Pretty badass. Swords have different animations. Two-handed weapons have different animations. Okay, we have an enemy here. So let's say he's about to hit me. Block. Too slow. Block. Now we got it. But you have to block way in advance. And this is a very slow enemy, but you have to block way in advance. You can't just block as you're about to receive the hit. Also, parrying enemies is a lot harder. Let me try to parry this. Fail. Fail. There's a parry. And when they parry, they sit down and they give you enough time to do a critical attack. But you can't attack instantly after. It's not like parry and spam R1. No, you have to wait a little bit, let them have a sit. Once they're sat down, then you smack them in the face with whatever you happen to be smacking them with. There's also obviously bow users. Certain items allow you to move while you are using them. So like for instance, this life gem, this is a healing item. I can move while I'm using it. Not as much movement as you can normally do. You can also do this when you're shooting arrows. You still move a little bit, very, very slow, but you still move a little bit. So you guys have seen parries. You've seen backstabs. Instead of the kick that we used to have in Dark Souls 1, we now have the push aside from Demon Souls. This is the equivalent of kick from Dark Souls 1. And for whatever reason, I have the hardest time doing this. I can very rarely pull this move off. I'm not even kidding you. I have some serious issues pulling this move off, particularly in combat. And in Dark Souls 1, I would reliably do the kick all the time. And here, actually, I'm getting it down kind of almost to a science at this point. But yeah, trust me, at the start, like guys with shields and spears, screw that. I would go for a backstab. I would wait until they hit me and counterattack. I would not use this because I would get killed. There's also the fact that I was making kind of like a glass type of character. He was very, very frail. But yeah, there's that. What else? Let me have a look at my list here. What else did I wanted to tell you guys? So I told you about the additional stats, additional slots. Let's talk about stats. So I don't want to show you guys the leveling up process, but let me just tell you, you no longer level up in bonfires. There's now a character that levels you up pretty much in the same way that you had that for Demon Souls. And in order to access your stats, here's your stats. So I'm currently level 58 in this character. This thing is the souls that I have in my possession. These are the required souls. Oh, they actually tell you the required souls to level up. No. Required souls? I don't even know what this is. Oh, wait, no, yeah. Okay, yeah, I was looking at it wrong. Basically, the icon is to the left, the number is to the right. So, number of souls, 800. Required souls, 5,600. So they actually tell you how many souls you need in order to level up. And then there's the soul memory attribute that I told you guys about. So if you want to co-op with your friends, not only you need to be close in level, you also need to be close in soul memory. Now, for your stats, Vigor. I kept saying Vigor throughout my playthrough. A lot of people have been correcting me. It is Vigor. whatever. Vigor, an attribute that determines hit points. This pretty much works like, was it Vitality, I want to say? Dark Souls 1? Can't remember. Either way, this is pretty much your hit points, and that's it. You level this up, you get hit points. Endurance determines your stamina, but it also affects other stats. Now, since I can't show you the level up because I don't want to show you guys the character and the location and all of that, let me just tell you that when you are leveling up, when you select the stat, if you look over here to the right side, it will highlight all the stats that it's going to influence as you level them up. So pay close attention to that as you are leveling. Select the stat that you want to level up and then look to the right, and they're going to tell you what stats it is going to affect. And there are a lot of stats in here. It's going to take you guys a while to get used to it. I still haven't gotten used to it. There's also a new stat called Agility. You can't level it up directly. It will level up as you go through Endurance and Adaptability. There's also this new thing that I've only heard EpicNameBro talk about it. I personally haven't realized that by myself, I'll be honest. But there's this thing where, like, for instance, if you have, like for right now, I have 13 Adaptability and 18 Endurance. In order for me to raise Agility, which is a stat that is affected by both of those, I would have to raise Adaptability because it's lower. I'm not sure if I'm making myself understood. I mean, but yeah, you have to pay close attention to how it affects your stats because there's a lot of stuff here that's different. Regardless, Vigor determines your hit points. Endurance determines your stamina, as well as, I believe, your stamina regeneration. Vitality, which, again, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. To me, these two stats should be switched. Like, Vigor should do what Vitality does, and Vitality should, but I'm being a little bit nitpicky. Either way, Vigor, hit points, Vitality, maximum equipment load. Yes, it's no longer Endurance that determines how much equipment you can carry. There's a separate stat just for that. And this is going to force you to kind of balance out how much Vitality do you want to have versus how much Adaptability do you want to have, because Adaptability is going to raise stuff like Agility and your natural poise. And Agility is going to affect, in some way, it affects, I believe, the number of invincibility frames in your roll. It affects how fast you can drink Estus flasks and how fast you can use items. Basically, you're going to want to have some adaptability. Not even I know the extent of how useful adaptability is, but you're going to want to have some of that, particularly if you're having trouble dodge rolling. Adaptability is going to be something that you're going to need. Attunement is going to determine the number of spells that can be attuned, pretty much the same way that in Dark Souls 1. It also determines your casting speed. Strength boosts your attack power, and it is also required for certain armors this time around. Not just weapons, also armors. Like, for instance, I believe that there was a specific set of armor that was really, really heavy. It required like 20 strength for you to use. So it's not going to require as much strength as weapons, but you're still going to need strength in order to use certain armor. Dexterity boosts attack with dex, obviously same thing as before. Also, it also affects your poison damage and your bleed damage, which is here, poison bonus and bleed bonus. Pretty much everything has bonuses, and there's a stat that is going to affect it. Like dex will affect poison and bleed. Faith is going to affect, for instance, fire and lightning, and I believe that intelligence also affects fire and lightning. There's this thing over here called dark. In order for you to level up dark, you're going to need to level up both faith and intelligence. You can't level just one. So there's a particular number of spells that will actually require you to use dark. Will actually require a certain number of dark bonus in order to be cast. Is it dark bonus or is it dark stat? Oh my god, that dark thing is really messed up. Like, I had some serious issues coming. It's not dark bonus. There's a specific stat. There's a specific stat that I can't even remember where it is, but because I definitely don't have 56 dark. I don't know exactly where that dark stat is, but trust me, there's a stat that is dark. I can go through my inventory, see if I have any dark spells. No, I don't. Well, there's that over there if you guys see here. No, this is intelligence. But there's there are spells that will use a dark stat, and that stat will require you to level up both intelligence and faith. And these are your basic stats. I believe I went through all of them. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you guys is how this dual wielding works, because probably there's a lot of people wondering what exactly is the benefit to dual wielding. And if you just dual wield the same way that you dual wielded, I want to go through these items really fast so that you guys don't see them. If you dual wield the same way that you dual wielded in Dark Souls 1, there's no difference. So you attack with one weapon, you attack with the other. Yay, dual wield. However, in Dark Souls 2, there is something else which is called a power stance. So power stance is what is kind of like the key to how dual wielding works. If you guys notice, this is me in normal stance, right? If you press and hold triangle, this is power stance. This is the power of dual wielding. Now at this point, how does the character actually work once you enter power stance, so to speak? Well, if you press R1, you still have access to your right-hand weapon. To all the attacks of your right-hand weapon work exactly the same. Your strong attack, your light attack, you still have your push away, you still have your jumping attack. You have all that on the right side. However, if you press the left side, it is going to attack with both weapons at the same time. Now, this is going to consume a lot of stamina, which is something that I wasn't even aware. But it is a lot of fun, and it does a ton of damage. Let me see if I can exemplify. Well, it's going to be hard to exemplify on these mobs because they're really, really weak sauce. Well, actually, there's a couple of ogres down by the river. I could go and die to those. But anyways, see, this is a normal attack, 251 damage. This is a two-handed attack, 381 damage. So that's the difference between normal attack, dual wield. You basically attack with both weapons, and you can create some pretty nasty combos. You guys might be wondering, so what is the advantage between doing this or using a really, really big weapon? Well, I'm not entirely sure in regards to what the advantages are. For starters, I think it looks really cool, but I think that one of the big advantages is poise break. Now, I haven't done extensive research on this, but supposedly if you're hitting with two weapons at the same time, you're going to cause your enemies to stagger a lot faster. At least this seemed to be the case for a boss that I just did, where I staggered the hell out of the boss just by spamming those attacks. We just get, oh, there we go again. Great. That was a waste of an effigy. Well, at least I get to show you guys my face when it begins to hollow. That was completely not intentional, but oh well. Some things come for good reasons. Now, in terms of ragdoll physics, for those of you who are wondering about the ragdoll physics, they're dead. There's no longer ragdoll physics. However, if you kill something and then come back to the area where you killed something, the corpse will kind of show up and like fall and start to almost do ragdoll physics, except you can't interact with it. It's kind of weird. Although that is probably just like a glitch or something. But yeah, I'm definitely having a lot of fun with dual wielding. I'll give you guys that much. Wait a second. Those guys should have respawned. Also, with my particular weapon set, I can't block when I'm dual wielding. I also can't parry, I don't think, because when I do a strong attack, it does this. Slash and re-slash again. Did I? No, I'm equipped right, never mind. I was thinking that I had my weapons messed up. There's still plunging attacks. They still work pretty much the same way that they did in Dark Souls 1. Also, something interesting about ladders. Let me just kill this guy over here and we'll talk about ladders. Okay, something interesting about ladders is that you can run up ladders now. You'll notice that I climbed that particular ladder really fast. You can slide down ladders, and you can run up ladders. Let me show you guys the normal speed there. See, this is the normal speed. Well, this ladder is really small. It's like a really bad ladder to exemplify. Let's kill this guy. Slashed. I'm having a lot of fun with dual wield. You guys can probably tell that. Yeah, this ladder is a lot bigger. We can use this one. See, this is going fast. This is normal speed. Fast speed. Jump off. You can jump off of ladders now. So be very careful. Don't just go to a ladder and press circle because your character will jump off. You will let go. And if it's a really tall ladder, you'll die. So in order for you to actually slide down a ladder, you have to press and hold circle and press down. And your character will start to slide up. If you press and hold circle and press up, your character will start to run up. So there's that. And the place where you guys see that weird blue looking symbol, where the humanity counter used to be, that is now your Covenant symbol. I'm currently a part of the Covenant of Blue simply because I wanted to get a ring that gives you a little bit more HP. But you guys see, this is something that I like. You guys noticed how the game took notice that you're not really in combat, you're not really doing anything in particular. Let me just take this UI away and let you enjoy the game. You see, I like that. I know that it sounds like a really small feature. I really, really like it. Now, I know that there's going to be a lot of hardcore people out there that are going to be like, oh, but I need to be aware of my energy at all times. I need to know everything. I'm like so hardcore. And it's like, that's fine. You can just put that on manual and just have it on all the time. Now, I was going to show you guys spellcasting, but there's nothing new particularly to spellcasting. Apart from the fact that you can recover your spell uses by using a consumable, which is something that you couldn't do in Dark Souls 1. You can actually recover uses of spells by using consumables that you can buy off of vendors and stuff like that. And wow, this video turned out to be a lot bigger than I was expecting, so sorry about that, I guess. Or maybe you guys enjoyed it. I don't know. Either way, I'm looking at my list here. Can't really see anything else that I want to talk about. You guys can notice that my character is now back in hollow, but despite being hollow, at least he still has facial hair. If you guys go back to the start of the video when I started the gameplay and look at the way my character looked, he looked very different from this, right? So there are now several stages to the hollowing process until when you get to actually 50% minus health and your character just looks like complete crap. Anyways, in my opinion, this game is a lot better. Well, it's going to be relevant. There's going to be a lot of features that some people are going to like better in Dark Souls 1. Like I can see that the whole blocking thing, that's going to be a real issue to a lot of people. Also, let me just show you guys Fat Roll, because why the hell not? Do I have any heavy weapons? Yeah, I do. Let's put this. Let's put this. We're already at 76%. That's enough. So this is when you're over 70%, your character becomes like Fat Roll. So this is the Fat Roll. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys another difference, which is this is normal roll. But notice that this normal roll doesn't go that far away. As a matter of fact, let me try and get closer to 70%. So we're now at 51. Wow, this weapon weighs nothing. 56. Jesus, and I have something big but not too big. 60%. Let's put on a helmet. I didn't want it to show you guys these helmets, damn it. 71%. Okay, now if I could just remove something really small, maybe this. Okay, 66%. So this is our roll right now. Right? Seems pretty reasonable. Seems like a reasonable roll. Let's actually do it sideways. This is our roll. Now look what I'm going to do here is I'm going to strip naked. And oh my god, you look terrible. Yeah, I know. Anyways, right now we're naked. Look at our roll now. It goes a lot further. Like, you guys might not be able to tell right now, but this, to me personally, it was a huge difference in some bosses to the point where I actually stripped down and fought the bosses naked because I wanted to have a longer roll. So that's pretty much the way it works now. I believe that it's every 10%. It diminishes your roll a little bit, the distance that you roll, up until 70, at which point it becomes Fat Roll. So that's the way that stuff works now. Someone in one of my videos made some theory crafting that he was testing out, and he said that usually, ideally, you want to keep yourself either below 30%, or if you're above 30%, just go as close to 70 as you possibly can, because the difference between the 30% and 70%, he didn't feel was that significant. But yeah, that's Dark Souls 2 without any spoilers. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's actually really hard to make something like this without any spoilers at all, because there's so much to show you guys that it's really hard for me to like control myself to not show you guys that stuff. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. As per usual, leave me your comments, feedback, all that kinds of good stuff in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one.